Today we're going to be working on translating words into math. So we're going to be working on taking word problems and writing mathematical expressions to represent those situations. So I just want to do a quick vocab review with you before we start today. We have variables are a letter that represents an unknown quantity. We have constants, which are the numbers without a variable. We have algebraic expressions, which are the mathematical phrases that contain terms and operational symbols without an equal sign. So there's no equal sign present in an expression in an equation. There's an equal sign in expressions. There is not. And so we've kind of got this little visual here that we're going to be referring back to as we go. First, we're going to look at the words, and we're going to read the problem. We're going to circle and underline important information. And we're going to think about what keywords tell me to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So we're going to use the words to help us there. With the words, we're going to transfer over to a variable. We're going to choose and define a variable by thinking to ourselves, what is it that I don't know? What am I trying to figure out? What's the unknown? Because a variable represents an unknown quantity. And then we're going to take that and write an expression by thinking about what are the parts and what order do they need to go in. So we'll take the words, we'll define a variable, and then we'll write an expression to represent the words that were given. So if you open up your foldable here, we've got some examples, and we're going to start with the words here. We're going to define a variable and then write an expression. So we're going to kind of be working from left to right here. So $15 more than Devin has. More than is an adding word. We should recognize that as an adding word. And so we want to know the amount of money. So my variable, I'm going to put M equals money. And if it's $15 more than Devin has, what we don't know is how much money Devin has. So our variable isn't just money, but we need to elaborate a little bit on whose money or which money. And it's the money that Devin has. So the money that Devin has, we can represent with an M. And if it's $15 more than what Devin has, we have Devin's money, M, plus 15, and that represents how much we know. And so I'm going to, sorry, my pen's going out. There we go. M is the money that Devin has, so our expression here is M plus 15. The next thing we see is 24 less cookies than Hallie made. Well, less than is something I'm going to underline or circle. Less than means subtract. So we don't know the number of cookies, so I'm going to use C for cookies. And again, if you can avoid one word here, if you can make this a phrase, that's better. The more words that you can put here, the better. So I'm going to include a whole phrase here, cookies that Hallie has. And if it's 24 less than Hallie made, or Hallie has, then we've got to start with less than and more than are kind of special words because we have to really make sure that we get this in the right order. Order does matter. Hallie has C, and someone else has 24 less than what she has. So her amount is our starting amount. C is what we start with, and then we're taking 24 away from C because it's 24 less than what Hallie has. So we're starting with Hallie's and taking away the 24. So it's really important that we are kind of extra careful to read and make sure that we've got the correct order when we write our expression. Notice my expressions do not have equal signs. They both have a variable that we defined here, and they both have a constant term, which is a term without a variable. The next one says the product of 20 and T. We know that product, you should recognize that as a multiply by word. And so the product of 20 and T is our unknown variable. In word problems like this, where we don't really know what t is, they kind of give it to us, you can just write unknown variable, and that's okay. The product of 20 and t can be written as 20t. When we write a number next to a variable, that just means that those two things are being multiplied. In fact, we call the number in front of the variable a coefficient. So the next one says twice as many donuts as Elizabeth ate. Twice is, again, another multiply by word that we should recognize. So twice as many donuts as Elizabeth ate. Well, we don't know how many donuts Elizabeth ate, so I'm going to put D equals donuts. Remember, don't stop at one word. Keep going. Donuts Elizabeth ate. And twice as many means we're going to multiply that by 2, so I have 2D is how many the next person ate. I'm going to do one more example with you before I kind of release you and let you try a couple. You've got the quotient of a number and 4. Think about which number goes on top. So we've got a number, so I'm just going to pick any letter of the alphabet I want. I like X because it's kind of our universal algebra letter when we don't have a letter. So I'm going to choose X, but you can choose any letter A through Z. X equals our unknown number. And it says the quotient of a number and 4. Quotient means divide, so we should recognize that as a division word. And we're going to put the unknown number on top because we have to go in order. So X is my first number and 4 is my second. What they mean by on top is we can write this as X divided by 4, or we can write this as a fraction X over 4 because the fraction bar means divide. Most often you'll see math people, mathematicians use the fraction bar when they can. It just tends to look a little bit neater, and so you'll see X over 4 probably more often than you'll see the division sign as you go forward. And so at this point, we've done an add, subtract, multiply, and divide example. I want you to try these last 4 on your own before you watch the next video, and then watch the next video to check.